Welcome to the Men After God podcast, where you will be challenged and encouraged as you pursue God, achieve success, and raise a thriving family. Join your host, Dustin, and his guests on a weekly journey to grow as husbands, fathers, and men after God. Here is your host, Dustin Alley.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Men After God podcast. I'm so glad you're joining me today. I have got a fantastic guest. First off, the one thing I love most about my guest right now is the fact that he is from the South and he sounds like it. It is phenomenal to hear just a kindred spirit. I'm up here in Connecticut and I don't have many good old boys I get to talk to, but I'm excited to be talking with Ryan today. And he shared some of his story that he's going to share with you. And guys, just what I want you to hear today, I want you to hear Ryan's just don't give up attitude. I want you to hear the tenacity that he has to have grown a 7-figure business and to have a faith and family that he does. And it's not because he did it perfect. It's because he made mistakes, but he didn't stop. And man, that is what you're going to hear today. And I'm so thankful that you're joining us, Ryan. Appreciate you being on the podcast, man.
Dustin, thank you guys for having me. The Southern drawl is real, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm up here and I'm up here in Connecticut. All right. And we don't hear this much. And I don't have much of an accent. Now, I'm probably going to walk away from our conversation and it's going to come back. Right. Because when I go home, I know I come back and, hey, y'all, how y'all doing? It's good to be here. I'm so glad that you're joining us. And it'll come out. But I love it. I love it. But Ryan, what I love more is what you shared with me was us getting to know you a little bit before we came on air, man. I want you to do me a favor. Introduce your family. You don't have to give names you don't want to, but introduce your family. Tell everybody about your wife and children. And then, man, just you can give as much or as little detail about your story to get to where you are. And I'd love to hear about how faith got you there.
Okay. So, like Dustin said, my name's Ryan. My wife and I married going on 14 years, Tamara. Just wonderful, blunt woman, as you'll come to hear through some of my testimony. Yes. We've got 5 wonderful kids. Our oldest is 21. She's at UGA School of Business, so go Dogs.
Oh, no, the podcast is over. It's over. I'm sorry. We can't do this anymore. I'm a UT fan. I guess I didn't even put that together beforehand. You're from Georgia. Oh, he's at Georgia. Oh, man.
It's okay. It's okay. Look, God tells us to love everybody, right?
So I'm really going to have to work at that with you, my friend. We'll see how it goes. But, but it's tough being a Tennessee fan, right? Georgia, you guys got a great program. You've done awesome stuff. But, our claim to fame right now isn't even that we beat Bama. We threw a field goal post in the Tennessee River. All right. That is what we got. All right. I don't see Georgia doing that. I'm just saying, championships, like whatever, throw your field goal away. That's what I want to say.
Them hedges are expensive. We don't want to mess them up.
Right. It's good.
We got a 21-year-old in college. We've got a 12-year-old son, an 8-year-old, 5, 4, 12, 8, 5, and 4 round out the 4 that are at home. And man, I'll tell you, we started with a girl, we ended with a girl, and the 3 boys in between are probably going to give me gray hair before I'm 40. It's they are a blessing unlike anything else. But man, Dustin's like I was an only child. I grew up out in the sticks. We had 12 red lights in the whole town. The cows outnumbered the people 2-1. My closest neighbor was, it wasn't a stone's throw. It was a 4-wheeler ride.
Right. There you go. Yeah. Oh, man. See, I was an only child, too. So let me ask you something when it comes to the kids, right? Like for me, the hardest thing I've had to come to understand is that brothers and sisters fight like they do, but that like they actually love each other. You wouldn't know it from the way they talk to one another, though.
Yes, a tenacious love, right? They will be at each other's throats and punching and hitting and kicking and biting. But you let somebody else punch, hit, kick, or bite and see what happens.
Yeah, right. It's over. It's over.
Yes,
man.
So, and then boys, and I can like my 21-year-old. She was easy. I say easy, but she wasn't. I mean, I don't know. We got blessed with her. She just had this mentality until it was time to brush her teeth, and then you would have thought the world was ending.
I hope
But
that's changed by now. If she listens to
yes,
this, like we're gonna just assume that's changed. And so
yes, she's good on the hygiene now, but
that's
she's
good.
always been the little mother hen. But
Oh
the
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, the others are, I guess, are, like the 4 and 5 year old, are just, the 5 year old thinks he has to correct the 4 year old little sister on everything
Mm,
she does,
mm,
right? And they're all such their own little people.
yeah.
They all have just such amazing characters. Like my 8 year old, he's our prayer warrior. Like
Oh wow.
I can come
Okay.
in from work and he's like, Daddy, you had a hard day, didn't you? And he'll just put his hand on you and just start praying.
Oh
And
man. That's a
exactly,
future
right.
pastor right there. That
And
guy.
then my 5 year old is just he's just Mr. Whiz. They're all homeschooled. And
Mm-hmm.
so he's just, I'm going to correct you. Like we were, his favorite color is orange. And I was
Amen.
we've
Thank
been
God.
watching
Thank
Medea
God.
or one of those. And I said orange. And he's like, Daddy, I'm going to say it again. The color is orange. Right? Like,
How are you raising Northerners in your Southern home? What's going on here?
exactly. So,
Oh man.
yeah, and then my 12-year-old is just like so kindred and so salt, like he's so empathetic. It's just amazing how they fight like cats and dogs, but man, they just love so deeply, right?
Mm, yeah.
And you can just see God in those situations, because they just, they have a heart for God. And are we going, hey, are we going to youth group tonight? Or, and they drive us to continue to just keep pushing and doing better. So
Man,
I
that's
don't know,
awesome.
man. And two of them were nevers, right? Like the 4 and 5 year old, I'm pretty sure I told my wife and I both were like, we are never having any more kids. Boop, pop the fourth one. We are
Uh-huh.
never having any more kids. Boop, pop the fifth one.
Yeah.
So I don't
Oh
use,
man.
I try not to use never anymore.
Oh, you're right. I wouldn't either. It seems to
No.
come true there. Oh man, that's good. That's
Guys are like,
good.
oh, you said never.
Yeah.
Here
Watch
you go.
this. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me show you never.
Yeah, man, I love it.
So
All right, let's jump into your story, bro. Your story was like sitting here listening to it. I'm relating, because I've got a similar story in my teenage years, not that you mentioned some things that I'll let you share, not
mm,
to that degree, but man, it was like my teenage years. I ran from God. I went away and just did what teenagers do and young Marines do. And, I can really relate to that. And I know what that's done for me now that I'm
mhm.
really following Jesus with my life. And like, I look back and I think like, man, how could I have been so crazy? And then to
Yep.
see his grace bring me to where I'm at right now, like that,
Oh,
that I know
amen.
that's impactful for me. So tell the guys your story, man, because I love it. I mean, you have, this is what's so cool about you, Ryan. You've got this 7-figure business there in Georgia, and I'd never known it. Right. If I didn't know who I was interviewing, you are a down to earth dude, you are a follower of Christ, but you found success in life, but it wasn't overnight. And it
No,
wasn't an easy journey, bro. So take
no.
our guys through your journey real quick.
Yeah, so a guy came from a really small town. I was an only child. My father was a self-employed contractor. He did a lot of industrial and commercial painting and sandblasting, so just hot and nasty and dirty jobs. And I mean, from 5 years old up, I had a paintbrush in hand and was out there working with him and just always on the job. My grandfather was kind of that quintessential, Southern grandfather. He was, one of the founding members of a Southern Baptist church there in Upson County, and deacon, and just member, kind of iconic member of the community. And so, I was born in church, I was raised in church, and just I knew what church looked like. I knew the motions, I knew what to do, I knew how to do it.
Yeah.
And my mom, she was a very insulin dependent diabetic, and so I kind of grew up in a really, I remember being very young at 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, and knew how to do CPR mouth to mouth, and knew how to give my mom insulin and other stuff, because that's how brittle of a diabetic she was.
Mm.
Um, and so I just always lived in this reactionary life. Like, you never knew one moment to the other what it was going to do. I mean, one week we would eat filet mignon and lobster. The next week we would eat ground beef and have to figure out how to make a pound of ground beef last all week.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Because my parents suffered from addiction, and I started using drugs at a very young age. I started womanizing at a very young age. I was running the streets my teenage years, and then my mom passed away. And so, I had that very topical level of faith of, oh, I know God. I've read the Bible. I grew up in church, blah, 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 that we hear so many times.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and tragedy struck. And so I just was running from these problems. And my mom passed in 2005 from drug addiction and diabetes coupled together. And I tell you, I lost it. I mean, I would quit high school, all of these things. I ran from issues. I actually ran so far, and during that running, I was, why God? I was just mad
Yeah.
at God, and just,
Mm.
what is this? Why me? Why this? Why that? That I wound up homeless. I ended up sleeping on a park bench in Cleveland, Berea, Ohio, which is right outside the Cleveland airport. Hopped on a Greyhound bus again by the grace of God. I can look back now and say, God's grace was there, because why I'm not dead or in jail
Yeah.
is only because of Him.
Amen. Yeah.
So Greyhound bus back to my little small hometown, and went to work in telecommunications, and then all I did was trade one addiction for another. So I went from drug addiction and woman addiction to work addiction. And just, okay,
Yeah.
now I'm married at this point. I got married 14 years ago. We were together 15. And it's, so now what does a man do, right? A man goes to work, a man provides money, but I was never home. I had fast tracked my way into corporate America. I was, middle management. I had worked. Everybody around me was 15, 20 years older than I was. So, I had this, you couldn't tell me anything, right? Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm providing for my family.
Yeah.
Well, then I fell in, so the work addiction then turned into alcoholism, and I fell into alcohol. And, I'll never forget. I was spending 25 to 40 weeks a year on the road. We had found out that our third kid was on the way. And my wife sat me down on the front porch, and she's like, how are we going to split up the kids? I mean, that's like, there was no
Right.
precursor. There was no other,
No.
like, she
Like
just
you
straight
said, she's a
led.
blunt woman, man,
She
and
punched
that
me in the
proves
mouth,
it.
like,
Yeah, she did.
bow.
I think you'd
How,
prefer to punch in the mouth rather than that. I mean,
how are we
goodness
going to split
gracious.
up the kids? And I'm like, huh? What do you
Yeah.
mean, how are we going to split up the kids? She's like, I can't do this. You're not here. And to be honest, I didn't know my 12-year-old. Like, I didn't, my now 12-year-old, like, I didn't even like him, Dustin. I
Yeah,
don't know.
man.
And,
Yeah.
I can tell, I guarantee you there's some men out there listening to this, that if they sit back and ask themselves in their gut, do I know my kid and do I like my kid? The answer is probably no in some situations. And
Yeah.
it is
Man.
sickening when
Yeah.
you have to hear your wife say, hey, how are we going to split up the kids? And then realize that you don't know your kid, and that you don't like them because you don't know them. That was deep. So we started praying. One of the nevers, like I told you, was I said I'd never hold a paintbrush again in my life.
Yeah.
And so it was okay. Let's go back to school. How do we go back to school and not have a bunch of debt? Because we're not a very big debt family. We're a really big budgeter and different things. And so
Yeah.
I started painting townhomes and apartments and rental properties in the evenings and on the weekends. So I was working 40, 50, 60 hours a week in corporate America. I was still traveling at the time. But I was doing everything I could to cut my travel back. I was going to school 2 nights a week, and I was painting every breathing moment outside of that. Fast forward 2 years, it was Friday, May 13th, 2016. My wife and I realized that we built up enough business that I walked away from corporate America, and her and I were in business together. But here's the thing, right? I still didn't know my wife, and I still didn't know my kids,
Yeah.
because for years I had been gone. And so now I'm no longer traveling. I'm no longer in corporate America. I no longer have this cushy salary. Now it's solely on mine and her shoulders to provide. And it's solely on us to be able, or so we thought it was solely on us, right? Like, see the words there.
Right. Right.
And it just got exponentially harder. We were at each other's throats because we were business partners, and I'm very much, like I told, I'm very much a visionary guy. So like I'm at 30,000 feet, she's at 100 feet, and so she's seeing all these little things, and I'm just like, oh no, it's okay. All this,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't listen to her on some of the stuff with the business, and it got bad. I mean, again, like it was another one of those situations of, all right, so how are we gonna split up the kids? And I think her and I both, by this time though, fortunately we had gotten back into the church. We were starting to flirt around with this thing called prayer again, and we were just, what is, and it, so we were asking, what does our life look like in God's eyes? What do we do? And
That's
we,
good.
and her and I both were just relentless pursuers of each other, of our relationship.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter how hard it got. We knew we had accepted that we were going to work through it because divorce was not an option.
Oh man, that's
Um,
so important. That's so good. So good.
and
Hey,
so,
listen, I want to stop you right there because I want to
yes, sir.
highlight this to our guys because that's huge, man. That's huge. And this is what I mentioned to you offline too. Like I love the tenacity. And I hope you're going to share the story you did with me because guys, this is what I was talking about in the beginning. The tenacity of his relentless pursuit in business. More importantly, his relentless pursuit of his family. And this, guys, take what's about to be said and apply it to your lives if you're not, because we can become callous and apathetic towards the things that don't provide us with success sometimes, that don't move the
Yes.
needle, that don't put more money in the bank, that don't get the better vacations. If it doesn't do that, then why are we doing it? Man, we can get there. As followers of Jesus, we can get there if we're not careful, because that's how
Yep.
our hearts are bent, right? So, guys, I think I interrupt you at the right time because I think I
No.
know the story that's about to come. And guys, hear this, and take it to your own family. If there's something going on, you tenaciously pursue your family first. All right, Ryan, keep going, man. Keep going. I'm loving this.
So yeah, man, I mean, we were arguing, like we would be sitting across from each other, trying to have a conversation, and I read people, so I would look at her face and I would get upset. Or she has this, so she was a school teacher by trade, so she went to school to be a teacher, an
Yeah.
elementary school teacher at that. So what I didn't realize, because I didn't know my wife, is that when she started talking like this, it was because she really wanted to make sure I understood her point.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that she thought I was a blummin' idiot. And we would get upset. And
Oh,
or
that's
her
great.
face would, or I
Yeah.
would look, like I talk with my hands. I'm surprised my hands aren't all up in front of the camera. Like I
Yeah.
talk with
Yeah.
my hands, I talk with my
Yeah.
face. Like I'm like, I'd cock my head to the side and get that awkward puppy dog look, like, and not the cute one, right? Like
No,
what the
the
heck
one
are
that's
you
looking at
talking
you
about?
yeah, that makes
Yeah.
her feel like, because dude, I can relate to that because there's times my
Yes.
wife says, "Quit looking at me like I'm stupid." I'm like, I'm not looking at you like you're stupid. I just don't understand what you're saying, and so
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, like we have boxes, right? And so that
Yeah,
information goes into a box, and then we got to comprehend that information. So it's like, hold on, let me comprehend that, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway, so like it got, like we got to a point to where we would sit in a dark room, we would turn all the lights off, we would literally sit with our backs to one another, and just so intentional on the words that we chose and how we spoke. And we probably should have saw marriage counseling. We probably should have sought counseling.
yeah. Yeah, but
But
listen to what he did, guys. They got in a room and turned the lights off and didn't even face one another. Like it was to the point, like, look, we need to talk, but I can't look at you right now. Okay, then let's find a way to talk without looking at each other. And of course, the cell phone, I'm sure, between two of you in opposite rooms is fine too. But guys, hear that. Hear what he did for his marriage, for his family. God, take that and run with it. All right, Ryan, keep going, bro.
yeah, so we just sat back to back, and man, I'll tell you, it was it was probably 2 years worth of, I mean, like it got to, nowadays our communication level is great. And we know each other's tones. We know, I know, through that, I learned that when she started talking in that kindergarten, in that elementary school teacher voice, that how do I say this? She didn't want to be right. She wanted to make sure the information she was given was correct.
Okay, that's good.
Right. And so what I realized was that if I could give her that information back, in a form that, and how I comprehended it and how I understood it, that was what she was looking for.
Man.
Hey, Ryan, you're never home, and you're not at home. You're working all the time. I'm the cook in the family. So like, I would come home from work. I would come home from running a painting business, cook dinner, be at home just long enough to tuck the kids in bed, kiss her on the forehead, and I'd go back to work, right? Because we had stuff that had to get done, had this, had that, just tons of things that in the way. And she's like, this, and she's a stay-at-home mom and part owner in the business. So she's handling the books and different things. So she's staring at a computer with multiple kids fussing at her. And it's like, she just wants to be heard.
Yeah.
And I'm here, and here's the thing, right? Like, we can sit in our business, and my employee could sit across from me, and he could complain about what his work environment, and he could complain about his coworkers, and I was able to understand what he was saying and then give it back to him and be able to tell them what they needed. But then I got home and it's just nothing there for my wife, and it was like, and so I learned to okay, so what you're saying is you're burnout at the end of the day, and you really need some time, whether it be alone or whether it be just you and I, to just decompress. And she's like, yeah. And
Man,
it's like,
you just hit, like, guys, if you're listening, that's like marriage counseling 101, right? Like that right there, that will change your communication with one another.
yes.
Man, Ryan, I can just imagine what that was like for you guys, seeing that transformation. And you guys brought Christ into it. You
Yes.
said you're totally with that idea of prayer and things. And so talk a little bit about being a business owner, growing a business. And like, you now have this 7-figure paint business out in Georgia. You've got a thriving faith and a family. And, when I say a thriving family, guys, I want you to hear me, I want Ryan to hear me. I'm not telling you you have a perfect family. Good Lord. I'm sure you still have arguments. You still have kids that are doing kid things, right? But it sounds like you guys have worked and you've got to this place to where there's always room for improvement. But man, you're thriving. You really are. And so talk about that journey of the growing the business and the balancing act between the two. Because I'm sure, like me, man, I definitely tip the scales in the wrong direction sometimes. And what you're doing now to kind of tip them the right direction.
Yeah. So, I mean, we just, through all that sitting with our back to one another and getting back involved in the church, and, we started, the cell phones can be great and they can also be a hindrance, but like we do, we started doing daily Bible studies to where, like, nowadays, and I'll jump forward to go back, right? So nowadays, in the morning time, we'll sit out on the front porch with our coffee, watching our hummingbirds at our hummingbird feeder, and we don't say a word to each other for like 45 minutes, but it's because we both have our AirPods in and we're listening to the same Bible study that we're doing together.
Man, that's so cool.
on the Bible app. And and it's just that time, right? But rewind 4 years ago, 5 years, that wasn't there. Now, we were serving in the church and we had gotten connected, and we had found that relationship with God again. And for me, we were at the dedication of my, I want to say it was my we were at the dedication of my 8-year-old, and that's when it all hit me. Like, I've got to find God. I've got to chase Jesus again. I've got to be intentional.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when I realized that that intentionality for Jesus was no different than the intentionality for my job, that really and truly the intentionality for Jesus is what helped my business grow. It's what helped it's what helped us get to 7 figures. It's what helped us deepen our marriage, because when you look at that umbrella of God, husband, family, wife and kids, I'm their spiritual leader. I'm their, but I'm also the business spiritual leader. I'm also, I'm, as men, we're all of these things. And so it just, tears and prayer and, just anger and resentment, all of the stuff that had to be worked out emotionally through prayer, and cussing at God, like, legitimately, what in the blankety blank is this, Lord? Like,
wow,
come on.
Yeah.
right?
And you know what? He's got broad shoulders. He could take that.
He does, and that yoke, right? And realizing that it's not all on our shoulders, that we're not made to bear that burden, and we're not made to do it alone.
Yeah.
That is what helped transform Brushstrokes, our business,
Mm-hmm.
into what it is. Because when I started sharing that burden with my wife, when I started sharing that burden in prayer, like, we were so broke, we didn't know how we were going to pay our bills week to week. And yet we made, we made it a point to tithe and in our family. And then, next thing you know, you look up and you're, and not saying that tithing, by no means am I health, wealth, and
Right.
X,
No,
Y,
I
and
hear you.
Z,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Yeah.
But it's, it's giving that first of our best, saying,
yeah.
this is yours. Let us be good stewards,
Yeah.
help us steward what you have given us.
Absolutely.
And then next thing you know, the family is, oh, we can go buy the kids school clothes, or, hey, oh, we're not having to eat beans and rice was a cuss word in my house
Oh, Lord.
for a long time. Yeah.
Oh,
And, so, and then after the tithing came the serving. And, and like I told you, one of our first core value in our company is servanthood, and it's serve others above self. And, serving in the church. And then I was blessed to serve as the youth pastor for some years. And that's a whole nother story, because that caused problems. Because again, I went from addicted to all these things to work. And then, my wife and I are working through this stuff. Well, then now I'm the youth pastor. Now I'm addicted to serving the youth.
yep.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so,
yeah, I feel that.
and, so when 4.5 years ago, when my 4-year-old was born, I bowed out of the youth group and like, hey, this is not the right season. This is a season that I need to be with the family, and I need to focus on the business. And
Man, such wisdom right there, man.
we were
Such
almost
wisdom.
bankrupt in the business. We were, we had put our own, we had depleted all of our own personal money. We had done all these things, and again, it was, I can't. I opened the mailbox one day and I got a check in the mail and I kissed the check. It was like, that was an idol, and it's just, and then tears and just having to stop and pray, like, Lord, you know what? You could take every bit of this money away. It doesn't matter. I don't need this money. I need my family.
Man. It's good right there.
And, that just, so through communication, and again, a very blunt wife, like, men, listen, for all the, I love my wife, and yes, she nags me to death, but she has so much wisdom and so much truth that when I stop to listen and ask, right? Like, don't be afraid to look at your wife and say, well, what do you mean by that? Don't just, if she's fussing at you about you're never home or you work too much, well, what do you mean by I work too much? Right? Ask that question for clarification, because we ask God all the time, hey, God, what do you mean by this? What does the scripture mean? What do what are we supposed to do in this situation? But then we put this game face on because society tells us that we're supposed to be, rah, 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 what have you.
Right.
And then we don't have the humility to lay down at our wife's feet and say, baby, what do we do?
Yeah.
How do what would you do in this situation? Can you give me some wisdom?
Yeah.
Man,
let me
just
pause you real quick.
Yep.
That statement there, I just want to be clear, guys. He's not telling you to look at your wife and say, well, what do you mean by that? That's not what he said. I just want to make sure, right? Like, because I know there's like one guy out there, like, I do it all the time. I look at everyone. What are you talking about? I have no clue what you mean. That's not what he said. All right. just hear that. It's not what he said. He said to look at your wife with humility. Hey, honey, I'm trying to understand this better. I hear you saying that I'm not home. Let me give you some other ways to phrase it so you might be able to come out a little better, might be received better. You could say something like, what is the impact that me not being home is having on you? What is the impact of my fault in your life? And again, you're not saying it of like, well, this is like, how is that your problem or whatever? Like, listen, guys, if you're not home and your wife has children or you have a wife at all, that is your problem. But asking it in such a way with humility, and you're trying to figure out, because guys, I don't know about y'all, I'm a little dense. It takes a couple times. I don't read between the lines well. I need this, like your blunt wife, man. I need that. Like, here, this is what I'm saying. Do you understand me?
Yep.
But asking that question, what's the impact? I had a conversation with a guy one time. He was talking about talking to his wife and stuff. He's like, well, I asked him, do you ever walk in and ask about her day? He goes, well, no, I know what happened during her day. Like, oh, no. No. You don't have to ask her what happened. Hey, how was your day? What were some things that took place? Sure, get the events. Or how do you feel about your day? Like, how are you feeling after your day, right? Is there anything I can do to help you be in a better state of mind now that I'm home, right? You're trying to help alleviate some burden, just as, what you mentioned your son doing it, of praying over you. But when you come home, guys, what are we asking? Okay, let's go back 1950s, 60s mindset here of, the husband comes home, there's dinner on the table, there's all this going on. Like, what was that? That was what did the man want from that? He wanted to come home and not have to do anything because he'd been working all day and he was stressed and he needed this cared for, right? And so same concept. Now, I know there's two. I'm not telling you to go back to a 1950s and 60s mindset with all that. What I am saying, guys, is we expect our wives to help us come out of our stress, help us to decompress. Like, we have to come into their world and provide that for them. That's when you're living a marriage
together.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And you're not, it's not that 50-50, right? Those oxes, they're not doing 50-50, guys. We got to give 100-100. That's a mutual marriage right there. 100 to 100.
You killed that one. No, you killed that one with, it's not 50-50, it's 100-100. That's
absolutely.
Amen.
So you grow in the business, the marriage is getting better. But you give, let's do this. Here's what we're going to do, guys, for our listeners right now. I'm loving what Ryan's bringing. I want everybody to hear this. So we are not going to do a founding members only episode for this. Ryan's going to get some of that practical stuff here in just a minute. We're going to extend this one longer than normal because I want Ryan to just speak to you guys because I think what he's getting is relatable, so powerful, and really needed. All right. So Ryan, you're growing the business. You've seen where, you're not home. You've got these things going on, man. And now you're at the place, you said you were bankrupt, and now obviously things are going well. What's life like now? And what were some of the choices that you made to help life be where it is now? You alluded to the Bible study with your wife, listening to it and things like that. What are some other things you guys have done now on the other side of things?
Oh man, just be intentional. Being intentional. Something that and this is still a work in progress. Like something that we really want this on my heart to start doing is a weekly family meeting. Where we come together on either Friday night or Saturday morning, and we sit down and we ask each other about our week, and give each person a chance to talk. Successes, and we don't say failures, we say lessons.
There you go.
To talk about their lessons, to budget. Is there anything that that maybe they want to purchase or that they want to do, and what does that look like in the family money? Like that's, so you guys, that's something that you could be praying for us about, right? Like we're trying to get to that.
Yeah.
But just being intentional, like being intentional with our time, being intentional with our money, being intentional with our words, like no matter what, at 5 o'clock, cutting the phone, separating that time. I was very active in Rotary clubs and other stuff, and just, and letting go of some of that stuff, and knowing that, there may be some financial impact in the business, but what do I gain on the relational side of the family? So like one of the things that I do now is I intentionally every other Thursday pick one of the kids, and we either go play golf, we go fishing, we go do something they want to do. And then they come to work with me the rest of the day for the most of the time, unless we're in commercial and industrial construction. So there's some places I can't take them. Yeah. But for the most part, they come spend the day with me. Fridays, so the kids are homeschooled and they're in classical conversations. And so like our co-op meets on Fridays. I'm off on Fridays. I go to the co-op with the family. Matter of fact, this upcoming year, I'm going to be doing the devotional in the morning time at the initial meeting for all the families and stuff.
That's awesome.
So, just being in, again, if I had to sum it up, Dustin, it's men, be intentional. Know that their time is just as important as yours. And, I've learned to love and like I've always loved my kids, but I learned to like them again
Yeah.
because I was being intentional. And then prayerful, like you were talking a minute ago. Like, I never would have stopped in my day and just took a minute and said a quick prayer for my wife. Like, just Lord bless her, be with her, continue to be with my kids, help her not string them up, Lord, help them listen. Like,
Help them not
seriously,
do anything to deserve to be strung up, right?
exactly. Like, and then praying for my kids, and it's being intentional, because
Yeah.
in business we don't get successful, we don't become successful, we don't get promotions, whether you work for yourself or whether you work for someone else. You don't just trip and fall and land at the top of the ladder.
No.
You have to be intentional, and it takes that same intentionality at home.
That's
um,
huge, man. Yeah.
and it takes that humility. Humble yourself. And and some of the best conversation that I've ever had with my kids is quick little 5-minute conversations that I really didn't have the time for, but it started out telling me about a Pokemon card that led to,
Mm,
well, Dad, the other day when you did this, it really hurt my feelings. And it's like,
yes. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, man. You
You
were talking about youth ministry, and the statement you just made right there. Like, some people, my wife and I were in youth ministry on staff about 3.5 years, but we were working in children's ministry a little before that. One of the things I learned in youth ministry was my time with them on Sundays or Wednesdays, and at maybe an event or something. That's cool and all. That's fun. But
hmm
it was the time that I spent with them outside of those things, serving together, grabbing a coffee, whatever, something like that. That's what earned me the right to be there for them when, we have one story of a young lady who showed up at our house at 1 to 2 a.m. in the morning when it's raining, knocking on the door, and she
hmm
needed somebody, and my wife could be there for her, not because we were there on Sunday mornings teaching, not because we were there on Wednesday nights teaching, because we'd been there for her outside of that. What you're
Yep.
talking about with your kids there, guys, you may have no interest in video games, Minecraft, Roblox, Pokemon, whatever else is out there, Bluey. By
hmm
the way, shout out to the dad on Bluey.
Cocomelon.
You're right. Yeah. Oh my goodness, no. So there are shows like I've banned in my house, and it's not for like this evil content or some spiritual things, because I just can't do it. My kids have never watched SpongeBob. I'm proud of that one. I'm okay there,
Me
right?
too. Yes, band together.
Yeah,
Barney.
right. Yes. Oh man, no. Coco Melon's another one. They turned it on one time. I'm like, this is I can't do this. Paw Patrol though. I'm about some Paw Patrol. I like that, but yeah, man. But if you're not, you've got to sit and listen to them talk about those things. Sit and listen to them talk about Pokemon. And you might not have any clue what they're talking about. Don't pretend to. Ask questions. Hey, what do you mean
Yep.
Pikachu shoots electricity out of his tail? Like, what are you talking about? This Pokemon does that. What do you mean Coco Melon sings this song? Whatever. Ask those questions. And then if you have to go and end the conversation, close it with something like, hey guys, listen, I love talking with you. This is fantastic. I've got to go get some work done because you like to eat, right? Okay, daddy's got to go do a little bit of work. Now, don't you use that
Yep.
every time just so you can get out of a conversation. Well, dad's got to work, so I can't talk with you, because then you're going to have your kid hating work. And that's a
Yep.
whole nother thing. But ask questions, be involved, because then you get to go deeper. But they're not
Yep.
going to let you go deeper just because you're not even there for the service. You got to be there for it all. And so, man, that's good. I
Exactly.
love that. Great.
Yeah.
So
Turn the electronics off, right? Like
oh,
that's
I
the
made a statement either on the podcast. I know I made it preaching. And I told our parents, I said, guys, I love y'all. And I say this in love, but y'all need to get a backbone and turn off the phone. It
Mhm.
ain't theirs. It's yours. And men, I'm going to tell you this right now. You got disrespect problems at home, turn the phone off. Turn the electronic, take the tablet, turn the TV off. You will see a change in your children. And I'm not
We had
saying,
one TV in our household until 2 years ago. Now we
oh,
only have two. We only have two TVs now.
we have a couple, and one of them's in the game room, which is where my wife works out as well. And then there's the
Yep.
family one that's there. Like, that's
Yep.
all we
That's
have.
us.
But they're not allowed to go downstairs. Like, if it were like, you can't just go downstairs and watch TV. It's not what you do,
No, you have to earn
Um,
it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely, man. Because I grew up, and I caveat anytime I talk about my upbringing. Love my mom, and my mom and dad got divorced young. My stepdad, they did the best they could in a time when technology was becoming new, and I was a crazy teenager and all this. But like, I had a TV, every video game system you could think of, along with a computer in my room, and
Yep.
unfiltered access.
Yep.
Guys, I'm just going to tell you, like, would you have trusted your 13-year-old self with a computer in your room with unfiltered access at all hours of the day and night? Then don't do
Nope.
it to your kids, right? We do. You mentioned getting the layer of electronics. So one thing I've started doing is trying to take a real Sabbath, right? Truly trying to take a real day where I'm not working, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's started last week for me as of this recording. And I took Saturday and I just left my phone plugged up on my nightstand, and I didn't take it with me. I didn't look at it, nothing. And there's two things I found out. One, I think I'm addicted, because there were times like I would like reach to my pocket. Uh-oh. It's up there. Okay. But it happened more than once, right? So that's a problem in itself. Two, I was at a friend's house that day. And before I left, the wife looked at me and she goes, "Hey, I just want you to know, like, I know you talked about your phone." She said, "I just want you to know, like, I've noticed you've been really present and actually here. And I really appreciate that." I'm like, oh, okay, I've got a problem, right?
Yep.
Just like my kids, we'll do a technology fast for them for a week. No TV, no tablets. And man, their relationships by the end of it, they're not really trying to bite each other's heads off. It ain't perfect, but they're playing together. They're outside,
Mm-hmm.
right? It
Yep.
changes everything. And your kid is going to make you think they need it.
Mm-hmm.
But last time I checked, they need food, shelter, clothing, and water.
Yep.
That's it.
Exactly.
So, I love that, man. Ryan, if you got a guy who's in your shoes, who is where you were, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, you know what? Let's talk to a guy that's in the business. He's where you were when it comes to the workaholic phase, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does he need to know right now? What does he need to hear to help him get to where you're at right now? Not just successful business, but successful with your family. What does he need to hear? What would you tell that guy? Think about that for just a minute. I want to talk to our listeners before we shut down. Guys, first off, again, this has just been a phenomenal interview and episode. I've loved talking with Ryan and what he brings to the table for you guys. The founding members, listen, guys, you're getting so much in this. We are not going to do that extra episode. But for those that aren't founding members, I want to just let you know what that means. That means you've decided to financially support the podcast by paying $8.33 a month for 1 year. And to be a founding member, you have to jump in prior to December. But if you jump in as a founding member, over a course of a year, you're going to pay $99.96. And we're going to give you a free piece of merch from our store. You get to pick. We're going to give you a signed copy of my book when it comes out and earlier next year. We're going to give you 4 free coaching calls on a topic of your choice with me. You're going to get a coaching call with our finance coach, a coaching call with our training and nutrition coach, and a coaching call with our relationship coach. All Christian men in their own space, experts in their field. And then you also get a 10% lifetime discount on all content and merchandise that Men After God produces, as long as we're in existence, which is to a perpetuity, is what we're praying for. And so that's all for $100 in a year. So $833 a month. Patreon.com/Men After God. It's a way to support the movement right now. And then a lot of the intentionality and stuff Ryan talked about today, we cover in our coaching program, which launches early 2024. So be on the lookout for that. All right, Ryan. Talk to the guy that's in that workaholic phase, that's just grinding and hustling. And a phrase that we're going to start using more online with our Men After God movement is we're here to turn the hustle and grind into success and family time. So talk to that guy and help him do that.
Ooh, okay. Man, let me say this. After you listen to this podcast, I don't if it's at nighttime and you're laying down or it's at breakfast the next morning, whenever you listen to it, the very next thing I want you to do is stop and ask God how he sees your family and sees your wife and sees you. And then I want you to go sit down at the dinner table, put the phones in the opposite room, and eat dinner at the dinner table and not do anything else but sit at the dinner table and eat.
Yeah.
That is, if I had to pick a pivotal moment that helped change everything, is when my wife put her foot down and said, we're going to eat dinner at the dinner table and we're going to do it every night together.
Yes.
And go sit at the dinner table. Go be in the dining room and eat dinner together. Don't care, not worried about breakfast, not worried about lunch, don't care about the time on the couch. Go sit down at the dinner table and break bread and just be there.
Dude, that's awesome. That is so good. I know, we've been blessed. My wife and I have always made a big deal about that. Every now and then we break away and like, okay, we'll eat at the couch. But, I think you saying that just helps confirm in my heart what a blessing it's been for us to have done that. Dude, that's wonderful. I love it. Guys, we've been blessed today by getting to hear Ryan's story, these practical things he's given you at the end that has just transformed his life. And I'll make sure to invite Ryan over to our group. And so if he'll jump in there, if you guys ever have anything for him, I'm sure he'd be happy to hear you out and talk with you, man. And so guys, listen, Men After God, that's exactly what we desire you to be. And what you've heard today can help you continue on that journey to becoming that. And we want to turn that hustle and grind into success and family time. And that takes intentional choices. Ryan, thanks so much for being on here with us today, man.
Thank you for having me. I picked up a couple y'alls and some other stuff. So you're right. It kind of
it comes out.
Coming in.
It comes out. Don't worry. When I leave here and go home, my wife is going to hear it. I know she's the one that'll pick up on it more than anything.
Just pull up Facebook like it's his fault.
This guy. It's this guy right here, right? Oh man, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, hey Ryan, thanks again, man. Appreciate it. Everyone listening, we will catch you next week. Don't forget, follow us Facebook.com/Men After God Podcast, or join our group. We'd love for you to be a part of the community. Get some help and advice on how to achieve success with a thriving faith and family. Facebook.com/groups/Men After God. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Men After God podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and keep up with the show by following us at Facebook.com/Men After God. You can also reach out to Dustin personally at Dustin@seekconsulting.us with any questions or for coaching on being a man after God. Until next time.